Broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio inside the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. It's time for Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. We are the cornerstone of security in the Southeast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. I'm your host once again, Rick Strawn, the president of Paradigm Security Services, and we're excited to be with you today on Business Radio X. We are coming to you from the Subaru of Gwinnett Atlanta studio, located in the beautiful Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel in Duluth, Georgia. Each week, as you know, we plan to feature businesses in the Atlanta area, especially those that serve Gwinnett County. And that includes businesses that are outside Atlanta but do a lot of business in Atlanta. While all businesses have security concerns, not all are about physical security, and we will touch on that and all related aspects of security through the course of each show. Our guest today, we have to have Stephen Letko. He's counselor to the president for the WellBend Corporation, which is actually based in Chicago, Illinois. Steve, appreciate you coming in. I'm looking forward to talking. We're going to talk a little bit about trade and how it's going and what's going on in the United States and the world overall today, aren't we?
It's a major topic nationwide.
Absolutely. Well, the WellBend Corporation is the largest North American domestic manufacturer of butt welding fittings and forged steel flanges required by the construction and energy industries. I'll get it straight in a minute. WellBend products include carbon steel, high yield, and low temperature fittings and flanges. The main thing is they're put in construction all over the world. And a lot of that construction, of course, a lot of construction going on in the Atlanta area right now. It's just on an uptick, and it's been on an uptick now for about 2 to 3 years. It's just on the rise. So let's talk a little bit about. First, let's talk about who is Stephen Letko. How did you get to where you are? What brought you into the business? And just a little bit about you personally.
Well, I started off in St. Louis. And I was working for a company called Midwest Piping and Supply, and they sent me through undergrad and grad school, and I spent most of my younger career with them until I had an opportunity to buy a company here in Atlanta. That company was named Dotson Steel Products, and we were a master distributor of pipe valves, fittings, and flanges. And my career went on until I sold the company about 12 years ago, and then got involved with the WellBend Corporation, whom I've known for years, and the owners of it. It's a close family company. They do a tremendous amount of business, and it's all domestic material. And they are the largest domestic manufacturer in North America, period. And they just got finished investing another $20 million in their business in their Chicago facility.
Wow. Well, you know, there's a USMCA, United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, that's been in the news a lot lately. And, you know, can you give us some reasons why it should or shouldn't, however your position is, be ratified by the Congress?
Yes, I do sit on a trade advisory committee with the federal the Commerce Department, Federal Trade Commission, and I've read that agreement cover to cover, but there's certain things I can't tell you because of restrictions that I have on secrecy.
Of course.
But it is up to Congress for ratification, and there are a couple of reasons that I urge you to get in touch with your representative and your senator to vote for this thing positively. There's been, under NAFTA, it was an open license for circumvention, bringing material in from low-cost countries, primarily China, bringing them through a surrogate country and then into Mexico, into a maquiladora, changed the crates and sent it in the United States totally tax-free. And this agreement right now has addressed that problem. It gives a platform for immediate action if you find somebody in noncompliance. And under NAFTA, it's quite expensive to get the lawyers in place, and it takes about a year to even get your case heard.
Wow.
This one, it is expedited. It immediately gets heard.
That's a big difference.
The other point is that they have a very tight requirement for country of origin. It must be on the paperwork that comes in. If there's a violation there, there is a very stiff penalty and a high tax.
Well, I'm all for these companies out there and paying the taxes coming in, because, we sure have to pay them going out. And it's been in the, there's a lot of oohs and ahs and for and against on that on the trade agreement. But everything that I've seen and everything I've read on it is really, it's a positive for the United States. So
It's a positive for both sides.
Well,
It
yeah.
really-
it balances it out, which
Mhm.
is part of the whole idea. Is let's get this stuff, let's get some fair trade instead of just, trade. Let's see. How about the need for critical industries to be supported by the government, utilizing tariffs mandated for the use of domestic products in government facilities? Now, that's a mouthful, so I'll let you kind of go into detail on it.
Well, that act goes back to 1933, prior to World War II, and that was the Buy America Act of 1933. And it really focused it on articles that were produced from offshore manufacturers and then brought in to be used in our defense industries. Well, when that supply chain got cut off, we had to switch our manufacturing from automobiles to tanks and armor and airplanes and ships. That subsequently was replaced by the Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. And under that, the president has the authority to regulate imports that are coming in and are detrimental to our defense of the United States. They are critical industries, not only steel and aluminum, but several other industries that are critical for our Defense Department. So he authorized, the President Trump authorized Wilbur Ross to research and see which industries were completely affected by the imports, and what he resulted in is we've lost our capacity to produce steel. And we exported that to all the way around the world, but primarily cheap steel from China. And he placed a 25% import tax on it, and he's threatening another 25%. As a result, our steel industry is now coming back. And it is critical for the United States to have a solid steel, aluminum industry, and even our technology industries. We can't export a lot of our expertise. These are really required. U.S. Steel has just announced for their 2019 CapEx budget $1.2 billion in new investment. And Nucor, which is right next door to us in Alabama, they put up $1.8 billion in their 2019 CapEx
That's a
program.
billion with a B.
With a B.
Wow, that's a lot of investment and stuff.
It's a lot of investment, but a lot of employment too.
Yeah. Well, and that's a big thing that people, they tend to forget when they're talking about a lot of these is the increase that it creates in employment.
Mhm.
The jobs as they're coming back with the steel industry are amazing, and they're coming back tenfold every time you turn around. So, the increases are, and one of the reasons why our economy is doing as well as it is you've got the increase in all these jobs that are coming out now, and the unemployment level going down so fast, or went down so fast as where it is now, when you really get down to it, most people that really want a job have a job. And that's good, and there's still more jobs being created all the time. We've got new jobs coming into Gwinnett County on a regular basis from major corporations that are pulling in here and setting up headquarters. It's just an awesome thing to see. Well, as far as the, can you give us a few of the positive effects of the tariffs imposed by the administration and trade negotiations, other than just, say, the part on the steel and aluminum?
Some of the positive effects is that we're bringing new jobs back into the United States. Look what's happened in the automobile industry. Around the Southeast, there's tremendous investments now. Toyota's coming back in. They're going to employ an additional 4,800 people, and I believe it's Tennessee. It's just they're making it more profitable to be here in the United States than the import. And if you look at our import taxes versus their import taxes on U.S. produced, it's not fair. I mean, it is totally out of balance. If you buy a U.S. car in Japan, you pay a tremendous import tariff. When they bring a car in from Japan here, it's 5%.
That's a big difference.
That's a big difference.
Well, it makes a big difference in the cost of the car, but then by the same token, it makes a big difference in the overall, not just profits, but people, they have a lot of times they look down on the idea of companies making profits, but those profits go back into the company, create more jobs. It's not just like, it's like my company. Yeah, we make a profit. We're in a business to make a profit. If we don't, we're not in business. But the majority of our profits go back in either to the business. Well, it go back into the business because a lot of paying our employees is going back into the business. So we're able to get more employees. We're able to pay the employees better. So and they're able to spend their money. I mean, it's just it's a snowball effect, I guess, what I'm looking for.
Well, it also it helps us on the domestic market by our quality of material is much more improved than the cheaper imports that are coming in. Just in our business alone, we see materials coming in from China at 40% below our cost. And say, how do they do that? That's a finished product. Look at the cost of the worldwide steel. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. But then you get a buyer that says, oh, look there's 40% spread between domestic and foreign. I'll be a hero. I'll buy that. On the back end of it, you got to put it into production and fabrication, and you lose that 40% because it doesn't fit up. It's out of plane. It's not round. And what is the liability to that if they don't meet truly the specifications that you ordered to?
See, that's a big thing is mitigation. Liability is a big thing.
Yep.
That kind of tags into, it's a security issue. In a lot of ways, you've got safety and security when you don't fit into specifications, and you go ahead and manufacture that stuff anyway. Then what happens when it fails? You've got liability that goes crazy. The safety of people is at risk. So there's a lot of things that come into that, and wipe out that 40% real quick.
There's current litigation going on now for, as an example, an offshore company bringing in what was supposed to be heat-treated flanges for a low-temperature application. And they were selling them at non-heat-treated prices. And after investigation and some destructive testing, it has been determined that those flanges were never heat-treated. Yet they're going into high-pressure services, such as Georgia Power, Colonial Pipeline, and if they rupture, the supplier is responsible for it.
Wow.
There's a liability, the safety factor, and the security factor.
Well, it's stuff like that really makes you pause and really think about, do I really want to? And one of the things that I argue about with people all the time is when you go the cheap route and you try to save that couple of bucks by cheaping it out, you pay for it in the long run.
That's correct.
Well, tell us a little bit, on a sidetrack here, about Wellben Corporation. Tell us a little bit more about that and what they do and how they get involved in not just the production, but in the overall system itself as far as the industry. That's what I'm looking for, and how they get involved in that and trying to produce better outcomes for people.
Well, the Wellben Corporation is 60-plus years old, and it started off as a supplier, and the owner at that time found it more lucrative to be in the manufacturing business. So he started this corporation and named it the Wellben, and they started the corporation in Chicago, and it grew over the years. And as you mentioned before, they threw their money back into the business, and he had a philosophy that he never went into debt. So when he expanded, he paid for it in cash. Well, now that has come up now to a major corporation. The third generation is now starting to take the business over. And Mr. Koulis is the president now. He is the son of the founder, and he's taken this company to an absolute new level. They have the state-of-the-art manufacturing equipment. They produce materials in the carbon steel that you see in regular buildings, air conditioning systems. They build a high-yield material that goes into Colonial Pipeline or the major pipelines around the United States, and the low-temperature materials that go into cold areas. And low-temperature materials are also used where there's earthquake requirements. There's gravities that you have to meet. That means the steel is more malleable. They sell solely through distributions, and one of the largest distributors here in the Atlanta area is Ferguson Enterprises, but we also sell to several of the other distributors. Their policy is the same price for everybody. They deliver a high-quality product. They've invested heavily in destructive testing and their quality assurance program, and they stand behind their product. If you have a problem, there'll be somebody there from Wellben immediately, and the buck stops in Chicago. You don't have to go overseas.
Awesome. Well, I know that you're involved, but does the company involve itself in trying to make sure that the standards for the industry, do they get involved in that anyway? And that's just off the top of my head. I'm just wondering.
They're in every code committee that's pertinent to our product. And I mentioned litigation about an offshore manufacturer bringing in material that was not heat treated. Mm-hmm. They are behind that litigation, along with other people out of Texas.
Awesome. I know that you sit on a lot of boards.
Right.
Can you kind of tell us about some of the boards that you sit on?
Well, I do sit on the Federal Trade Commission on a group called ITAC 5, which is buildings, materials, and metals. Mm-hmm. I sit on the board of directors of the PVF Roundtable, which is a 501c3 corporation domiciled in Houston. Primary purpose there is raising scholarships for the trades. And I sit on the board for the Mechanical Contractors Association. That's the national association. We have a local one here. And I sit on the supplier side of the equation. But if you're a supplier or a mechanical contractor in that organization, your vote is equal to everybody else.
I think you just got back from a convention out where in Vegas or
Scottsdale,
Arizona. Mm-hmm. And that was with the mechanical.
That was the mechanical contractor. That's their annual convention, right?
I think do you see anything new coming down the pike? Anything that's being developed or has been developed that's maybe not?
Well, number one, the outlook for them, economic outlook, says 2019 is going to be a pretty good year. It started very softly, but if you look at the weather pattern and what we went through in January and February, that's what slowed everything down. But what they see in the pipeline is a lot of work coming. And new projects are being almost announced daily, I mean, locally and nationwide.
Well, that's fantastic. I know the economy overall, like I said, is doing extremely well. And when corporations and industries such as the one that you're in mm-hmm. prosper, that means that the other stuff that it's going into are booming too. So and as the suppliers boom, your producers boom and suppliers boom, the people that consume the product has got to be booming too. So that is awesome. Now, you just brought up something about sitting on one of the boards that on training or education. The need for the return for vocational training to the high school curriculum has gotten a lot of push in the last few years and has really done well. Can you talk a little bit about that and the need for it?
Well, you mentioned being at the MCAA convention. One of their initiatives is their Mechanical Contractors Educational Foundation. And they work very closely with UAW. And they are sponsoring a lot of scholarships for people that need to get into the trades. They recognize the fact that not everyone is college material, either by their education.
Or traditional college.
Yeah, traditional college. And maybe they don't want to go that way. But
Exactly.
there's a heck of a lot of opportunity to make a lot of money in the trades. The skilled trades, a journeyman welder, and you can become a journeyman welder within a year or so, can make up to $250,000 a year.
That's awesome.
A plumber, a journeyman plumber, they can make that kind of money. And people coming in from distressed areas, the inner city areas, they're providing scholarships for these kids to get into the trades and pull themselves up into a new economic platform.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know that there's a lot of push and a lot of success in Gwinnett County school systems with focus on those trades and getting these kids, because you're right, a lot of kids, you know, everybody for years it was the push of, well, you're not going to get a job, you're not going to have an income, you're just a nobody if you don't go to college and get a 4-year degree or a 6-year degree or get your doctorate, master's, whatever. And some of these kids, they're just not interested. They may even have, they may even be able to do it, but they're not interested in doing it. They're interested in working with their hands. They're interested in working with a trade, and that's the opportunity.
One of the sad things in our public schools is they don't teach them the basics anymore, reading, writing, and mathematics. And all of those things are related to getting into the skilled labor. And if you don't have that base, you got to learn it and then learn the skill on top of that. But our federal government pushed everybody into, everybody needs a college education. That's not true. And it's showing right now. Right now, one of the most critical things facing any industry is the ability to get skilled labor. Building trades here in the Atlanta area or in the Southeast, tremendous need for talent. And that's why we're going to all of these scholarships to bring people into the business, because it can cause delays in major projects because you just don't have the people to get it done. There are 2 major pipelines coming down that are critically important to converting old coal plants to gas-fired plants. They don't have a pipeline to get down here for bringing the gas into. There's a dozen of them for Duke Power. That is a critical thing, but that requires, in the 2 pipelines alone there, 27,000 skilled laborers.
Wow.
And they're having a hard time finding them.
Well, and, you know, I think that is one of the biggest things that I see. You know, I'm personally involved with Gwinnett, so that's where I'll keep my focus is.
Mm-hmm.
I see in the Gwinnett school systems there's just a big focus on all the STEM stuff and doing the things, not just with that, but in just all the trades, to really get that developed so that we have those skilled workers, and those skilled workers can really make good incomes.
They sure can. Now, is private industry working hand in hand with the group, the school system?
That I don't know, but it'd be an interesting thing to find out.
I used to be involved with the DeKalb County school system years ago, and we had a group called Partners in Education.
Mm-hmm.
That Partners in Education would get financial aid from the private industries to promote programs for training. And I don't know if that's a factor in the Gwinnett system or not.
I don't know, but that is something very interesting to check out, because there's so many avenues that they could reach out to get that, that it would be a benefit without a doubt to me. So sounds pretty good to me. We've already talked about the skilled labor in regard to the general construction, refinery, and pipeline industries and all. But what the industry is doing to address the critical issue of skilled labor shortages overall, what is your industry doing?
We're promoting scholarships, like I mentioned before. The scholarships are absolutely critical we're able to reach into cities like Houston and Louisiana, the major cities there, St. Charles, those areas. That's the big energy capital of the world right now.
Right.
And they're experiencing the same thing that I mentioned about the pipelines, the shortage of these critical industries. Plus, you got the kids that are coming up in those areas that don't have the financial means to even get into a trade school. These scholarships from the national level, which is the MCAA, and from the local level at PBF Roundtable down in Houston. We're reaching out, giving scholarships to these low-privileged people to pull themselves up to an economic level that's sustainable for a good income, and they can make a lot of money.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned Louisiana. Are you particularly active in the Atlanta area yet, or is that coming? Or
we're looking for any opportunity to work with a trade school and set up a scholarship program, or it be Atlanta, be Detroit, or Chicago, or just anywhere that it's required.
Well, it sounds like somebody in that position might ought to kind of check you out and look you up and see what they can do about getting on your radar.
Well, they got my website. I think you got it here.
Well, we're going to get all that out. The biggest thing that I see is the desire to help out and the desire to give back and work with these kids and create, just an overall better America. And I think that's important. If more companies would do that, then we would have a lot of the income inequality of people going. It's really a matter of how much effort you want to put in. Do you really want to raise yourself out of this? Do you really want to better yourself? And those that do, my experience is they really don't have any problem getting there. It's this, they've got to show the determination and the perseverance to reach out and attack that and go for it.
Well, once they acquire a skilled trade, their self-esteem goes way up, and that's important, and they see the importance of doing a good job.
Well, that is important, is doing that. So, and self-esteem is just something that a lot of kids, unfortunately, today, they lack. And I see a lot of people working really, really hard to provide them the avenue. You can't give somebody self-esteem, but you can provide them the avenue to develop it.
They have to earn it.
Yep, they can develop it and earn it and move from there. Well, I tell you, there's some great information that we've got. I love the fact that y'all are working on those scholarships and everything, and looking forward to what comes out and comes down the pike, especially with this trade commission too. I mean, their trade agreement. And really like to see that go ahead and everything work out there and get to just in place and take off. Well, Steve, is there anything else that you'd like to hit on or talk about, or anything before we get off and move on?
Oh, I think that the critical issue that's facing us right now for the construction trades, and which includes the Atlanta-based area, is the need for skilled laborers, and to bring those people into the labor pool would be very helpful. Gives a better ability to answer the needs of construction, and also provides a platform for them to raise themselves up.
Well, it's awesome, and I appreciate it. Do you have, before we go ahead, you got phone numbers, websites? Can you give any of that out that where people might be able to copy it down and get in contact?
Yeah, my website is www.splenterprises.com. splenterprises.com. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I encourage people to go to it, take a look at it, see what they might be able to develop out of it, and move on from there. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us on Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. Remember, you can join us live every Wednesday at 11:30 in the morning, or you can listen to our show, including this one, anytime you'd like by going to businessradiox.com, clicking on Gwinnett Studio, and then click on, of course, Case in Point. Join us next week at 11:30 when we will talk with some other business leaders about their businesses and related security issues in today's world. Thanks again to my guest, Stephen Letko. as counselor of the president with Weldon Corporation. And for our producers, Mike and Trey, I'm Rick Strawn, and remember, at Paradigm Security Services, we cover more than just your assets.